Listeners be advised. The Soliloquy podcast discuss matters related to the human experience and many that are sexual in nature. Due to this, some conversations may surround triggering topics such as sexual violence, self-harm, abuse, and much more. Please be advised, a list of crisis and psychological resources will be available in the show notes of this episode. With that said, let's get started with the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention please as we go through the following safety instructions.
In the event that there is a loss of cabin pressure, oxygen mask will drop from the overhead. Place the mask over your nose and mouth. Breathe normally as oxygen is flowing even if the mask is not inflated. Be sure to adjust your own mask before helping others.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Soliloquy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. This is your favorite host, Vernon T. Scott, also known as Slaytor Jackson, and for you freaky motherfuckers out there, Sebastian Adams. On today's episode, y'all, it's that part 2 that I promised. So, of course, Ryan's back. And just for those people who may have missed the last episode, definitely go back and listen to that. Some of what we're going to be talking about today may have been covered under that, but it is what it is. You could look, if you just new to the show and you just like, I want to join this conversation anyways, go ahead, join the fucking conversation, but make sure you go back and listen to the rest of it. That's all I'm saying. Okay? But of course, for those new people, Ryan, do you mind introducing yourself to them? Let them know what you do, and all that other jazz.
Yeah, I'll do a quick introduction. Hey everybody, I'm Ryan Jones, also known as Ryan J. I am an environmental engineer who works in the Atlanta area. I also do spoken word. So I perform occasionally. In 2018, I was the 13th in the world, quote unquote, for spoken word. I say quote unquote because like the world just means the people at that competition, anybody could have entered from around the world, but yeah, 13th in the world, quote unquote, in spoken word in 2018. I traveled across the US and Canada doing spoken word before eventually making my return to engineering, where I currently work doing environmental work. So yeah, glad to be here. And yeah, excited to do part 2 with you, Vernon. It's fun. Yeah.
Yes, well, I'm happy to have you with me today, and yeah, I'm so ready to get into this. So the first thing that we're going to start off with is that scene from For Colored Girls. So in this scene, y'all, you've seen the meme, you've seen Janet Jackson and her beautiful ass look over to this beautiful black man and just be like, "So you do the bending."
Right.
So I get where she's trying to come from. She's been smart, she's been snarky and all this other stuff because she's hurt. I understand her hurt feelings because look, the man ended up giving her HIV because of his actions. So I understand why she's hurt. But at the same time, for these other motherfuckers who are not feeling this pain, that Miss Janet Jackson, her I don't know the word right now. I know it's like beneficence. There we go. I said it. Her beauty and all. Y'all not Janet.
Right.
Y'all
Right.
could get these
Right.
fucking hands. But
Right.
anyways, how does that scene make you feel? What emotions came up for you when you seen this movie for the first time, or how you see it when you see it now, or just the meme itself?
Yeah.
What do you get from it?
Yeah, so I'll talk. Well, so this is like I'll talk about the meme particularly, and kind of touch on the movie. But like the first time I saw that meme, like it was used as like a way to make fun of a queer man in some shape, form, or fashion. And so like I thought that was weird. Where I was like, I didn't realize we were just being like out here like that, right? Where we were like just like readily making fun of people like for their sexuality and like everybody's kind of like tagging on. I was like, I thought y'all saw what happened to the baby. I thought we let that go, like, and we moved on from that. But it was, yeah, it just it's kind of touching on what we talked about last episode. It just feels kind of weird that we're kind of entrenched in homophobia still, and I really wish the community would kind of move on from that, and move forward and accept the fact that kind of like you said, all Black Lives Matter, not in the all lives matter way, but like queer Black Lives Matter, trans Black Lives Matter, etc. And so like being in a situation where we feel comfortable enough to make those types of jokes also just like it bothers me in some shape, form, or fashion. Um, as far as the movie itself goes, thinking about like the context of, I'm not going to put any sexuality on Tyler Perry, but
Hmm, I
there's
would.
something in my brain that says Tyler Perry isn't straight necessarily, you know. And if he is, cool, my bad, I apologize. But like, if he like seeing him create art that creates that conversation or creates an opportunity to allow people to like potentially use that language against queer people when he himself is potentially queer, I think is a it was also kind of interesting too, especially as like a man who regularly like dresses as a woman for his movies, like etc. It's like I think it just feels kind of like an internalized hatred almost
Hmm.
of you know who he is or who he might be, and if he isn't, again, cool. I think that's the Christianity speaking then, but um, you know, I think there's a lot there. It all felt kind of weird the first time I saw that meme, and then also the first time I saw that scene in the movie.
Now you
Um,
got me on Tyler Perry, and I try. I've spoken on Tyler Perry so many times on the podcast. Y'all motherfuckers go back and listen to all that. I'm still
yeah,
going to speak on him today. Like I love the man,
yeah,
and I love what he does. I don't like everything that he does. Let's put it that way. Most
yeah,
definitely when it comes to how he treats his performers and how
yeah,
he pays them.
yeah.
And let's say this: you don't become a billionaire by treating people fairly. That's
Right,
all I'm saying.
right, right, right.
but, but anyways, I do believe that he does have some type of queerness, which is okay. And if I'm wrong, I accept that it's fine. But to be a performer who emulates drag on a regular basis,
Yeah,
and it is fine to be heterosexual and do drag. There's plenty of drag queens out here who are heterosexual. There's
right.
plenty who are queer. It's a whole spectrum of who identifies within that within the community as a
Yeah,
drag performer. So that's not the issue here. It's just the fact that he never really gives any promotion or any type of like support for queer things.
yeah,
Well, if it's bringing him some money, of course, but if it's
right.
anything like showing genuine growth that people can have, most definitely when it comes to religious circles, he fails to do that. He refuses to do that. Even when it came to that most recent movie that he put out, or and the play where he queer coded the son. I think it was not family reunion. The his Medea last play, and that changed to the family movie, whatever
I
that
think I know what
is.
you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, the one that he had his whole damn Beyonce performance on. But he queer coded the son in that film and in the play. So people expect that him and his roommate are dating this entire time. And of course he does make the statement, even if I was gay, that wouldn't be an issue. It shouldn't be an issue. I get that. That's nice. I'm glad that you say it. I'm happy that you even brought TT up in this motherfucker. That's great because I don't know what the fuck is wrong with TT, but oh my God,
Right, right,
it did what needed to be done because I was dying. But like all that is great, but you still don't really have these truthful conversations as a content creator, as a writer, as somebody who has a full reach to multiple people within this community to educate people that it is okay to be spiritual, religious, or whatever the case may be, and be queer. It is okay to be bisexual. It is okay to be homosexual. It's okay to be transsexual. It's okay
yeah,
to be transgendered. It's okay, whatever you look at, it is fine
yeah,
because we promote love in these streets. We
right,
don't promote hatred. We don't continue to shame people because of how they have to live their lives. We don't ever see that.
yeah. How much of that do you think is his personal, like is intentional, right? Is less of like his blind spot as a writer because from what I've heard, infamously, he doesn't include other writers in his writing process.
Not
It's
at
mostly
all.
just him, right? So, how much of that do you think is intent, and how much of that do you think is blind spot or omission? Like, I think I think it's like understandable if actually I don't even want to say that much because I think we should all be on that tip at all times. But yeah, how much of that do you think is intent versus like just not necessarily thinking about it when he's writing?
I think all of it is intent
Yeah,
because the reason why is because he refuses to allow other people into the room because he gives me the vibe that he has a huge hubris, that
yeah,
he believes that anything that he writes is going to be amazing. Like that one movie that he played, and he did my girl dirty. The one from the Haves and Have Nots, the mother in that show. You know, everybody
yeah,
was talking about the wigs. They had dude who played
yeah,
Eggs from True Blood in there with this horrible ass wig, and people just like, what the fuck is going on? That
yeah.
movie.
Right.
And he comes out of nowhere because I have a feeling, of course, me projecting, but I had the feeling that the only reason why he mentioned that it took 3 days for him to write that and
Yeah,
produce it and all this other stuff because he wanted to gloat if it went well.
yeah.
And
Right,
because it went bad, oh well, I understand it didn't go as it should have gone. I only did it in 3 days, man. Look,
right,
3 days, I put
right.
that out there. Some people enjoyed it, others didn't. It is what it is. But
Yeah,
if the community was behind him, was like, oh, that shit was good. Man, I did that shit in 3 days. The fuck you
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
The fuck
Right,
I am Tyler motherfucking Perry. The
right,
fuck you mean?
right.
Like
Right,
like
right.
so I think a lot of his things are intentional because of he's in that mindset that, oh, I know this is going to sell, let me do this jab, this other jab. Like he had that entire portion of that dinner conversation in that most recent movie about police brutality with the
Yeah,
police officer at the table so we can be sympathetic with this and then making these other right-wing related talking points about, oh, so who you're supposed to call when somebody robbed your fucking house, of course the
right.
police, but at the same time they shouldn't be murdering us.
Yeah, right. At all. Yeah,
We
at
can't
all.
have that nuanced conversation. It's just we
Right,
accept being murdered,
right, right.
but we
'Cause
still have to call them so that somebody broke into my car, which they're not going to investigate.
right, right. They'll lift a fingerprint or two and it'll go nowhere because yeah, they're not actually doing the jobs that they should be doing, and maybe those jobs should be entrusted to other people and other agencies. But whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah,
But, like he's very intentional on how he presents the message, and I will say he
yeah,
is great at messaging. He is
yeah.
wonderful at messaging.
I'll give him that. I think he's learned how to communicate via his work in a way that a lot of other people aren't able to.
Hmm.
Um, but I feel you on that. I think it's easy to paint it as like a blind spot where it's like, oh, okay, word, I'm not going to inject messages about, and maybe that's, yeah, I'm not going to inject messages about like acceptance and like loving everyone and creating community and creating a community that accepts everybody, and etc. Because that's not the message that I want to preach this time around.
Mm,
Or it's really easy to accept that as like I forgot whatever, but if knowing that he's a good communicator, yeah, it's like that's probably where he's at, is like, oh, I'm just don't preach that this time around. I don't want to. That's not where I'm at. That's not what I want
mm.
to for everybody to take away from this. So I tried to give him a little credit there, but you're right.
Look, I
He is a good
appreciate you for
communicator in that
trying.
way.
I do appreciate you for trying. Like he lost all like I had little respect for the man already, but he lost the last little bit when he made that one little kink scene, that BDSM scene from that one
Hmm.
show that I never really watched, but I saw the clips. And I
Yeah,
get having the fake dick in the like that's fine. But the actions of the BDSM, like you live in fucking Atlanta. Again,
yeah,
with these wigs, you live in fucking Atlanta. All these damn people making these. If Medea can be out here with the lace front laid on the
right,
scalp from God,
right.
and these other people with the basic shit that you find from the local Chinese market,
Yeah,
the ones that,
right,
oh,
right.
give me that one on the top shelf. Oh, how much is it? Oh, 75. Okay, that's cool. We could work it. But Medea get the one
Yeah,
that's 3,000. 3,000. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
But other than
yeah.
that,
You're right. It's
in
all
these
intent there.
spaces where you can hire so many people who specialize in these things that can influence your writing style, like you can still be the sole writer, that's fine. But people who can give you the knowledge and the like way to produce these things, direct this to make it really empower the story even further, and you don't use it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like do some hiring, hire some writers who know what they're talking about when it comes to that type of
Please,
stuff. Please
please.
and thank you. Yeah, you need some additional writers in the writers' room. Tyler
It's
Perry,
okay.
if you're listening.
It's not going to take you. It's not going to take away from your billions, fam. You're a
Yeah,
billionaire. You got your stuff. That's great. I'm happy for you. And if you ever say that you did this by yourself one more fucking time and not
right,
mention
right,
all the black people who's been at your damn show and skyrocketed your damn career, nigga.
right, right. It's not the flex you think it is.
It's really not. It's really
Yeah,
not. You're telling everybody who's supporting you, oh yeah, y'all did nothing for me, but I got myself
y'all
here.
didn't do anything.
The Holiloquy podcast focuses on the variability of sexual expression. When it comes to sexual expression, we often depend on pornography to illustrate how one must perform sexually. For those who have not learned this by now, the stuff you see in porn is not real. Pornography provides a singular perspective of sexual expression that is not often the reality we see during our own sexual encounters. The Holiloquy podcast is a conversation that takes you outside of the compressed box of what many know about sex. Some of the topics we discuss includes kinks, condom usage, status disclosure, and past sexual experiences. The Holiloquy podcast steps out on sexual norms and recognizes that the norm is not the only normal. Subscribe today and join the conversation.
It's not the flex you think it is.
It's really not. It's really not.
Yeah,
You're telling everybody who's supporting you, oh yeah, y'all did nothing for me, but I got myself
y'all
here.
didn't do anything. Yeah, yeah. I did by
All
myself.
those, all
Okay.
those damn Medea DVDs that I bought from somebody that was bootleg as fuck, sir.
Listen, the original plays too, you know what I'm saying? Like not just the movies, the plays too.
Every single one.
Like,
Every single
and
one.
the little skinny DVD cases, you know, not even that isn't even a real DVD case. They bought those from Walmart out the label and split that in.
Put it on publisher to print out a little screen.
Right. Exactly. They typed up the credits on the back themselves. That's special features that they recorded, and you want to act like by yourself.
Exactly. Oh God. But you know, it is what it is. Tyler Perry, be great. Um, we supposed to be talking about For Color Girls, Lord Jesus. Oh Lord.
How do you feel about the meme that meme in that particular scene?
So I laugh when I see it, solely
Yeah,
because of I get that what people not necessarily what they mean, but just the situation it is, and it is
mhm,
funny. But I also do recognize how horrible that is because I don't get what it is. Like, why do people happily jump on toxic trends?
yeah,
Like for me, let's say if, I was a person who experienced that with that the same situation that Janet Jackson was in, or and I will have to admit I've come close
yeah,
to being with somebody and they lied to me and may have exposed me to some type of disease, and I have to have this conversation with them like what the fuck is going on. So I get
right,
that emotional feeling that Janet Jackson was experiencing. But to
yeah,
be a person who was directly involved in that and see it being made fun of this way and taken out of
yeah,
context, I see how that can do emotional harm to people because
right,
it's taking the seriousness out of that. That's
right,
like even when people joke about that scene from Precious where she's running with the chicken, but the reason why she's running with the chicken is because one, she's underfed at home. Regardless of how big the girl is, her mother does not truly take take care of her. She's uh, she's impoverished. She doesn't have the finances to afford the things that she wants to afford, and this was the one opportunity for her to get something that's like outside of her norm, and she takes that opportunity and runs, and then almost kills her baby in the process, and people want to make that as a joke. Like the context of
Right.
these situations do matter.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I get that, oh, as a clip, it's hilarious. So let me go ahead and do my TikTok with Janet Jackson in the background and put somebody in this situation within my video to make fun of that person. But at the end of the day, this is pain. This is somebody's
Yeah.
trauma, and we're trying to make a joke of
Right.
it. Why? There's
Right.
so many
Right.
different clips from any other show that can make the point that this person is trying to make in their funny take. But because this is a trend, because everybody else is doing it, oh, why not just join the bandwagon? Why
Yeah.
not just make sure that I use the same audio, the same meme, so that I'm able to potentially go viral from this?
Right. 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 And I think a lot of that stems from one coping mechanism that our communities kind of developed in order to you know again, yeah, cope with trauma is laughter and
Mm,
is humor. But I think it kind of speaks to what you're saying about like context, like contextually, like everything matters, right? If I'm making a joke and the person that it happened to isn't in on the joke and isn't participating with the joke, then it stops being funny, right? It's not funny
mhm,
anymore if they're not joking too, like if they are still holding that trauma and they're still learning to process and deal with that. Um, so yeah, you making TikToks using that audio, you going viral, et cetera, and or posting memes, et cetera, only intensifies, in my opinion, intensifies the trauma. But when they're joking about it and then you're joining in on that joke and you're laughing in community, I think that kind of changes things. In which I
mhm,
think it's appropriate to laugh if they're trying to make you laugh, versus
mhm.
like yeah, versus in other contexts. But yeah,
Yeah, that's like with with that one sound bite of that chick, like, oh, what is that? Oh, it's a chicken salad. That little voice thing, like
yeah,
that has been like that's embedded in my mind at this point because so many people have been using it randomly on other things to say that, oh, this shit is fire. This
right,
is where you need to be at. This is amazing. It's delicious. Whatever the case is, and I get that, and because that soundbite was so stuck in my head. I asked somebody yesterday, what did they eat? Because we were talking about food, and they were like, "Oh, I had a chicken salad and some barbecue wings." And I was like, I just died laughing because I read chicken salad in this girl's voice.
yeah, right, right,
Like that's something that we as a community can appreciate and laugh about. But when it
right,
comes to somebody else's pain, like you said, it's not like, yeah, laughing at your own pain sometimes does help, but if you're laughing at your pain so much that you don't deal with your pain, then you're just
yeah, it's a
burying
problem,
it.
right?
Like
That's a
there's a
problem.
point where you actually have to go through those emotions, deal with that pain that you're feeling. So on the other side, in the distant future, you'll be able to laugh at the position that you were in during those painful days.
Yeah, yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
But yeah, uh, we do need to do better as a community. But anyways, another thing that we briefly discuss as related to the four colored girls situation is just biphobia in general. And
Yeah,
another thing, prior to us getting back on, we were talking about the history of homophobia.
yeah.
So before we even get into the history side of things, what have you noticed or seen within not just the Black community, it could just be society as a whole, that perpetuates the idea of biphobia as well as the idea of homophobia?
Yeah. So I think that it tied or I'm gonna use the word married again. I used the word married in a brief conversation we had before, but to me it's kind of like always been married masculinity, right?
Mhm.
The idea of biphobia and homophobia. And that I think it's been interesting to watch this happen. Growing up, at least, there was, I think we've all been like conditioned, or we were all conditioned growing up in the 90s at least, to masculinity a certain way.
Mm,
And our at least my definition at the time of masculinity didn't really allow for much variance outside of like this like typical like stoic hypersexual hetero man, right? And like, I think anybody that showed any type of deviance from that, like whether like maybe they were more feminine or androgynous or like, or emotional, etc. Um, I think people automatically labeled them as gay or something of the sort, right? I think that like really encouraged the idea that if you are any of those things aren't masculine. Well, if you're emotional or sensitive, you aren't masculine. If you're masculine, the goal should be to be masculine.
mhm.
And everything outside of that. And I mean, we've kind of reached a fork in the road, right? Where there's that shift. There's still like I think a lot of people that validity, lots particularly, are trying to hold on to that idea of masculinity. But then there's also like this again, this diverging road of like, oh, maybe masculinity isn't what we've defined it as or what we've traditionally defined it as, and maybe it's a lot broader than what we've known it to be, and maybe it can include, um, you know, homosexual, bisexual, pansexual people. Maybe you can be both masc and interested in, loving your same gender or genders other than quote unquote opposite one, um, and etc. Um, and yeah, there's been this like kind of conversation. I think I kind of in another conversation we had was in this. I had a similar experience to you as that you mentioned last episode about like joining a Black group on online and hoping to find community there that valued different Black experiences, etc. When I was in that community, kind of like the conversation of like masculinity and of like breaking heteronormativity kind of came up regularly, like in some shape, form, or fashion. And uh, uh, a lot of what the language that was used, I think, was like buck breaking. They were like, oh, like back in the day, and again, I know you don't want to touch on history yet, but it kind of pertains, not in the way that we'll talk about later, I'm sure, but they're like, oh yeah, when we were brought on plantations, plantation owners would use this method called buck breaking, where they would try to, where they would violate and emasculate men in order to get them to, bend to, the plantation owner's will, and by subjecting yourself to, homosexuality, bisexuality, you're just engaging in more buck breaking or whatever. And the buck breaking part is true. I think, you know, there's this mindset that people have still that again still pertains to the masculinity because it's all about masculinity. That like, oh, I again engage other men or have these feelings or etc. Then I'm a buck that's being broken. My masculinity isn't intact. Not I'm not a man anymore, and it's just a weird thought in my mind, like or a weird train of logic. Like I don't understand how you can't see that if you identify as a man or if you are a man, then you are a man, and nothing's going to change that. And if you are masculine, then you are masculine, and nothing's going to change that. How you, except for whether or not you don't want to be masculine anymore, or if you aren't a man anymore, then that changes. But yeah, I don't I yeah, I think it's all tied to this like idea of masculinity that people have grown up with or have been conditioned to believe, or society has conditioned people into. Uh, that's kind of like encouraged and perpetuated this idea of like of homophobia, biphobia. Yeah, you can't be both a man and masculine, and then also this other thing that traditionally, quote unquote, not masculine. But yeah.
Mm. I agree with you 100%. Like I I hate that so many people give so much power to other people
Yeah.
in terms of how they identify themselves or how they represent themselves or um they allow other people to label them however they choose to, rather than
Yeah.
just being like, hey, I'm just me. I'm living my life. I identify as being a man. I identify as being masculine. And you can't take my identity because that
Right.
is a personal thing. No
Right.
one else can give you your identity. Like
Right.
someone can try to twist who you are. They can try to, defame your character, change your name and all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, only you can define yourself.
Right.
So to give somebody else that power to do that, what does that truly say about you? Take your power back. Own your
Right.
own narrative, own your own story, and be happy
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
Like even with the bug breaking situation, like you said, that is a thing that did happen, but people take that out of the context of what is going on during those days. Like
Right.
this
Completely.
is his this situation is white men, white settlers, white colonizers, um, raping black men in front of their families to show that they're the ones with the power,
Right.
that this is them showing how savage that they can be, that they will do this, that they will disrespect the man in this way. And if you
Right.
dare step out, what do you think is going to happen to you? Because if
Right.
we'll rape a man, we will rape a woman.
Right.
If we'll rape a woman, we might even rape a child.
Right.
We might even do worse than that. But this
Right.
is us showing you our power. So
Right.
stay in line. That is the context of that. When it comes to how people express themselves sexually in consensual ways, is not about power.
Yeah.
It's about
Right.
pleasure. And that's alone. That's what it's about. It's about the way that a person chooses to receive their pleasure from a partner that they want to consensually engage with.
Right.
Is not about the rate.
Right.
That's completely different. And for those people who just learning about this history, I'm sorry I had to be graphic, but there's a disclaimer that is put in every single show that hey, we might talk about some real shit, and we are talking about real shit in this moment.
Yeah.
But that is the reality of what people experience, and to say that people who are bisexual or homosexual are engaging in that on a regular basis is disrespecting those victims of these assaults back in those days.
That and it's like, so you're saying one, you're saying that you're being disrespectful towards your ancestors, and I know that's a big deal for a lot of people, including me. But then on that too, you're saying that sex for you is about power, right?
Mhm.
Is like, so you're saying that anybody who engages in that way is like giving up their power, and therefore like, or like you yourself, you're in sexual situations, must maintain your power. So it's like all the sex you have about power, which in and of itself is power too, isn't it? Like, you
Mhm.
know, I don't know that you can engage in a consensual sexual situation and like not agree to the terms of if I'm having sex with somebody and we both agree like this is a power struggle and that's what this is going to be because we both enjoy that, this is our kink, that's one thing. But
Mhm.
it's like another thing for me to be like, well, okay, I'm coming into the situation knowing myself that this is about power and that this is about what power I can take from you or what power I can wield over you. And if you don't consent and you're just wielding power over somebody, that's problematic too. That
Mhm.
needs to be talked about.
Ooh, child, don't get me started in rape culture, Lord. Oh my God. But since we're on the topic, that a lot of masculinity and that concept of masculinity, hypermasculinity, toxic masculinity, however you want to define it, a lot of that is stemmed within rape culture. It's a
Yeah.
portion of it. It is a factor. And a lot of that does stem from that idea of I need my power. I need
Right.
to have control over my sexual being.
Right.
And this is why, like, I'm a firm believer in if you engage with somebody and they identify themselves as a dominant or they are dom, ask them to define exactly what dom means to them.
Yeah.
If it's a person
Yeah.
who only cares about the control of the situation and not in terms of you receiving pleasure by being their sub, don't engage with that person. And I
Right.
say that because they may be within a mindset where they only think about control. That if there's a
Yeah.
point where you're uncomfortable and you may want to slow things down, they're not going to give you that opportunity, that space, and that grace to have your own body respected. So any person who's like really, really fixated on control, don't even go
Yeah.
that
Don't engage.
route.
Right.
And it's not to say that these persons are abusers or what have you. It's just they have things that they need to work on within themselves before they can
Yeah.
engage in sex with other people.
Right.
Um, now, on top of that, the concept of masculinity, most like you said, with people in the 90s, like the same, like I get exactly what you mean because there were times like you know how we have these arguments about black women's hair and whatnot.
Hmm. Hmm.
I really do hate the fact that black men are not included in that conversation
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
as I aged, I wanted to do so many things with my hair that I did not have the freedom to do because one,
Yeah.
if it's unkempt, I may not
Yeah.
get a job. If I don't
Right.
have waves, oh, I'm looking as though my mom is not taking care of me. If I
Right.
decide to get the braids, because you know we had to get Bow Wow got his braids in and all this other stuff. It was cool. It's like, okay, cool. If you missed that trend or outside of that, if you still have braids in like 2008 or 2012, you're uncool. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You're lame. You're a loser. All this other stuff. Like, you
Yeah.
don't look the part of what a black man is supposed to be. Like, all these things, all these qualifiers that we put on young men, young adults, just men in general, from all spectrums of what it means to be a man is completely unfair. I get for
Yeah.
women, I get your story. I definitely get your story. It's unfair for y'all too. We talking about men right now. Love y'all.
Right. Right.
Mean it. If you don't believe I love women, go back and listen to them other episodes. Y'all be all right. But in terms of men, it's just like so much that we have to carry on our backs that is completely unfair. We are not, most definitely as black men, we're not allowed to be emotional. We're
No.
not allowed to cry. We're not allowed, well, the only emotion we can express is anger.
Yeah.
But even that has to be checked because you cannot be angry in front of white people or people of
No.
different races. Because if you do that, you trying to go to jail.
Right.
We'll
Right.
show you
Right.
where you can be fucking angry.
Right. Right.
So it's
Right.
like there's so many things that weigh on us about how we can express ourselves emotionally, how can we express ourselves as a gender, how can we express ourselves in terms of education, language, all these things. But if we don't fit that, oh, we're going to strip you of every single thing that you identify as being a man and
Right.
automatically make you something feminine that's opposed to who you are. So we're going to call you gay because of the actions that you're doing. That's not the heteronormative way. We're going to call you less than a man, a bitch, or whatever the case is, because that's what you're being. Because why are you being such a little bitch? Why are you crying?
Hmm.
All
Hmm.
of these things to demonize us because we're not allowed to have that privilege of breathing
Right.
for real.
Right. Of allowing
Um,
us, like allowing ourselves and each other to be like fully who we are, both emotionally, physically, like in any of that stuff. Uh,
mhm.
yeah, I
And
agree with you.
that's like and I hate to bring this situation up and I know when this episode airs it's going to be months after this happened, but the recent suicide of Twitch, DJ Twitch,
Yeah.
and you see so many
Yeah.
people who's like, oh, black men, you need to go to therapy and everything, and of course I agree, but we have to look at things in a cultural context of where a lot of black men are before we start to try to have these conversations, because there was a black woman months ago who had a campaign saying black men need to go to therapy and all this other stuff. And what happened? She ended up being deplatformed as well as losing her job because of people not appreciating her message, and that included black men and black women. And I
Yeah.
think she said it was the majority of black men, but the thing that started it was a black woman. And
Right.
that's the thing that trickled down to everything that was happening for her. but we don't create spaces for Black men only. And we also don't create spaces within the community for Black men to be human.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
we we just don't. And yet we still have these discussions of Black men need to go to therapy, men need to do this, men need to do that. How can we if we don't give us that space to do so? Now,
Yeah.
yeah, Black women do it all the time, but Black women also have that space to do
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Black women have that space to cry if they need to. Of course, when it comes to Black women in family structures, this is a little bit different. You can't cry in front of your kids. You can't cry in front of your husband, whatever, but you can cry. You just have to cry in silence. And
Mhm.
that's a different kind of story in
Yeah. That's,
itself.
yeah. That's its own problem. Yeah.
But in the same breath, Black men, you can't do it. You can't even cry
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah.
Because if you
Right.
cry alone, you see yourself as being less than a man because I'm not a little bitch.
Right. Right. And I think we're like, again, slowly but surely coming to a point where some of that stuff is starting to change. But
Hmm.
I think we're having more of those. The thing that I've appreciated is watching our definition of masculinity shift over. Like we're starting to have those conversations more in public. I've seen more of that particular conversation of like, well, it's like people joking about it, but they're like, oh, I can't show emotion or else like somebody says something to me or like somebody like people don't want to be bothered with me anymore. And I just remember a point in time where we couldn't even have that point of the conversation, right?
Mm.
It's like where we couldn't even get to the point where, we could legitimately say to somebody or somebody could say to somebody, that's what a therapist is for. Like we didn't even talk about that. We didn't even get to that point. We were very much still, people crying in silence and people like, really withholding their emotions because they felt like they weren't able to talk about them. But I appreciate that we're at the point now where we can at least start having that conversation.
Hmm.
I'm optimistic that we'll get to a point where we start deconstructing the spaces that we exist in and recognizing how they can be unfriendly or unwelcoming um, uh, uh, to like the emotional well-being of man in particular,
Yeah.
and et cetera. I'm hoping it changes sooner rather than later, but I think there's going to be some people that have to die off first. I'm not going to lie about that, but
Look, I'm with you on, I understand there are some people, look, though I want to save everybody, but you can't save everybody.
you can't say
Like,
her
I think back to, I don't know if this was truly written by Harriet Tubman, but I'm going to say that she did say it because it still resonates. Somebody said Harriet Tubman, one, she had that gun for a reason because not all Negroes really want to be free. And the
one,
other thing is you not everybody is meant for freedom.
right?
And I'm like, look.
Yeah. Listen, and this we talked about it very briefly, but like, in my experience with like being a part of an online community, when I realized they were like black and homophobic and transphobic, et cetera, my first thought, speaking of that, was like, oh, I can't leave community members behind. And I said that. I would say that or not said it. I would like write, like type it in comments. I'd be like, oh, okay, word. They're like, why are you arguing still? And I'm like, because you can't leave community members behind, like keyboard warrior style.
Mhm.
And it got to the point where I had to realize like there's no point in saving people who don't care about my well-being. It's like I'll put the information out there. At some point in time, I gotta let you go because
Mhm.
you are a danger to me and other people. And so like if you're a danger to me and other people, I'm sorry. You like you can be saved. I don't think hope is lost, but it's not going to be me that saves you. I'm not going to put myself in harm's way for that.
Exactly.
Especially if you're not willing to come along right now and to keep up with the Harriet Tubman metaphor. Like, yeah, if you want to stay on for my dude, like, feel free. I hope you get free one day, but I'm not going to be add you to freedom. Sorry.
Exactly. Well, like
Yeah.
my old supervisor used to say, it's not his job to leave everyone to their enlightenment. No, no, he used to say, I'll release you to your enlightenment. And I took
There you go.
that to mean
That's
it's not my
that's
job to
crazy.
lead everybody to
Right.
their enlightenment. It's not. It's like
No.
all I can do is
No.
provide the information and you do what you wish with that.
Right.
That's it. Like I put it out there. You either accept that as the facts or accept that as the truth or you don't. Uh,
Right.
if that's you, it is what it is. And I know a lot of people are in this American white supremacy cult thing that's going on because we are entrenched in whiteness and Eurocentric identity and representation,
Right.
information, and all this other stuff. I get that. But either you going to unravel that and see the broader spectrum of what this world is outside of the US. If you
Right.
don't feel like doing it, it's not my job. It's just
Mm,
not my job. I can show you,
nope.
look here, look there. It is what it is, but it's
Yeah.
not my job to release you. Like,
Yeah.
you
Right.
free.
Right. 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 I'm letting go and letting God. That's really what it is. What is
Exactly.
what's that phrase? It's above
It's
now.
above
Like
me.
that's it's above me now. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
speaking of cult,
Oh
this
man.
will be the perfect time to go into like the history of homophobia.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of people think that, oh, people were homophobic or people did not like gays all these years, blah, 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 blah. This is for centuries that people have been doing this. It's really not. It's really recent.
Yeah.
It's within the last
Yeah.
200 years when people really started to demonize homosexual people. It personally, because again, the information is Eurocentric, and I look at things in the black lens.
Yeah.
But a lot of this started after Reconstruction, where you
Yeah.
had a lot more prosperity gospel, a lot more people saying that, oh, these sexual acts are demonic and this, that, and the third. That happened around, yeah, it happened after Reconstruction, like after 1909 or something like that. But I really do believe that the reason why homosexuality became demonized, most definitely within biblical text and whatnot, is
Yeah.
because Black people were free and then
Yeah.
women became free. And you
Yeah.
need to find somebody to hate in
Right.
this society
Yeah.
because if you don't have anybody to hate, you can't prosper,
Right.
apparently.
Right.
Um, we live in a death a place that celebrates death and celebrates hate. So you need
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when queer people, gay people got the right to marry, where did this narrative shift next? Oh, there's this marginalized community. They're trans people. We're going to go after them. How dare
Yeah.
they
We're gonna keep it
trick
moving.
us? Hey, no trick. You know what you know what's here. I don't know too many trans people who lie about themselves. You
No.
know this dick is on this woman. You know this vagina is on this man. You know what you came here for. It's not a trick.
And what it's like. Yeah. Well, and then like the people that were still mad about the other thing didn't go away, right? They're like, oh yeah, queer people have the right to marry, but we're still here. We're still angry about that. Uh,
Mhm.
and we're gonna do everything in our power to make sure that they can't, right? Or that they go back to where they can. I think about that. What is it? The Defense of Marriage Act, or what is it? What's it called?
Yeah, I
That
think
new
that's
act
it.
that was.
Defense of
Yeah,
marriage. Uh-huh.
where it's like, oh, we're gonna codify Obergefell, and that's the Supreme Court case where one of the Supreme Court cases that was tried where they were like, yeah, queer people, gay people can get married, you can't nullify. Anyway, all that stuff. Yeah, we're gonna like strike down, we're gonna codify Obergefell, but then you read like, the act and everything, and it's like, marriages between same-sex couples that exist territories like other states or whatever have to be federally recognized in all states, but it doesn't necessarily like secure the right to marry for same-sex couples. It doesn't say that people have to perform those ceremonies. In fact, it says the opposite, that if
Mhm.
you refuse to perform those, a ceremony because it's not in accordance with your religious beliefs, that like, that that you're allowed to say, and they can go on and else to do that for them. So it's like, they're steadily like, they didn't go anywhere. They're steadily working, steadily trying to make, folks don't have the ability what deserve, right? The God right to go and marry somebody else.
Mhm.
That they fall in love with, and then you have people like Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court that are like, yeah, I was on the court when this was decided and it was wrongly decided, even though he's, yeah, he's his own problem. But still, like, It's just craziness.
I'm a firm believer that Clarence Thomas is trying to find legal ways to get out of his marriage without having to go through a divorce. I don't, like everything that he does. I'm just like, sir, it's giving unhappy. It's giving hella
Yeah,
unhappy.
yeah,
Like, let's
yeah,
go ahead and know all interracial marriages.
yeah.
I'm losing my wife. Oh my God. Oh,
Me?
me? A
For
whole
real?
me? What?
Wow.
I am
Wow.
shooketh. How did that happen? Oh my
Crazy.
God. It was great,
Crazy.
Jenny. It was so great.
I could see
Damn.
that. I could see that. The reading some of his opinions, his older opinions, like people get like, okay, this isn't defensive. The man sucks. I'm just gonna be open and honest about that. But reading some of his opinions, back in the day, he was like, yeah, I think he was like Brown versus Board was wrongly just shouldn't integrate schools, or no, it was affirmative action. He was talking about affirmative action. He was like, affirmative action is bad. It's like, is a poor standard or whatever, um, because black people experience more harm in white spaces than it's in their own spaces. So why should we try to bring black to white spaces to subject them to more harm? And like, I'm like, Clarence, I agree with that,
Mhm.
but how did you get from that, to where you are, where you're just like, I feel like you heard some of what was said to you when you were younger, and then we're like, okay, you know what, I'm going to run with this the opposite direction, and I'm going to go from being a potential actress to being, for lack of a better, well, actually I'm not going to say that, to being the worst of the worst, right?
Mhm.
It's very confusing to me, and then to marry an insurrectionist is just insane, but
It's so insane.
yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like I think he's still mad that he almost got convicted for his sexual assault, but that's a different story.
yeah,
He was
yeah.
like, "How dare that black woman speak up on me? Fuck you!"
Right, right. Well, can't trust none of these Negroes. Let me go the opposite direction. Yeah, crazy.
Exactly. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's so wild. My thing is I hate that they just be like, "Oh, we're not a religious country and all this other stuff. We need to respect all marriages," but then still say, "Oh yeah, we can't support polygamy." What? Like how
yeah,
like
yeah,
I get that the
yeah.
only reason we even have marriage as a institution in this country is for tax benefits and whatnot. But at
Yeah,
the same
yeah,
time, let these people who are expressing themselves in whatever religion they happen to be in, where they have multiple wives, have the legal protections that they need for their multiple wives, multiple husbands, or whatever the case is, their multiple
right,
spouses, and let them be happy and let them be married. It's
right,
okay. If that
right,
means they get
right.
more tax benefits, let these motherfuckers get more tax benefits. The corporations get
They signed
enough.
up for it. Right, right. For it.
Look,
You're just mad because you can't get more. That's what
exactly.
you
You
barely
better.
person to marry you. You're mad that somebody's got six people lined up. Okay.
Exactly. Exactly. Let them live the life that they need to fucking live. Cause look, if
Right,
if if it if I had to have six motherfuckers lined up, let me have my six motherfuckers and enjoy my six motherfuckers. Shut
right,
up.
right. First and
Get out of
foremost,
my bedroom.
crazy. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't involve you. It doesn't involve you. Why are you in here? Yeah.
No
Yeah.
one
Let me live
invited
my
you.
life the way I want to live. Right. Right.
Look, like,
Ultimately.
oh, yeah, you can call me a welfare queen then, or whatever you need to call me, because look, these tax breaks, bitch.
I'm getting them and you're
Fuck a
sorry.
double income, no kids. Quadruple income, no kids, motherfucker. You thought?
Crazy. Yeah. Yeah. They're wild. That's IRS is like, okay, tomorrow. Check up on this one. Check up on this one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, but that is it's just wild. Another portion before we get to the end of this episode that I did want to talk about in terms of the history of homophobia is that y'all, gay people are not new. Trans people are
Yeah.
not new.
Yeah.
These people, we've all been out here for
Yeah.
centuries, for millennia. Like it's nothing new. It is nothing new. Like people back in
Yeah.
the days of Sparta was out here fucking each other.
I was like, what
We're
do you think they
having
were doing in
whole
Rome?
child. The bathhouse concept came from somewhere. Granted, they,
First and foremost.
like, granted, these motherfuckers were the newest people within the European side of the globe that were actually bathing, and they were
Right.
also fucking. They like to have, nice scents, nice fresh heat off of their bodies as they fuck the men and women that they want to engage in. It's all good. Life is
Right.
great in Rome. We went to
Right.
Rome to be a hoe. Okay?
Well, and thinking about it outside of the quote unquote Eurocentric lens, right? I was something the other day, and I'm gonna have to send you this if I can find it again. Um, about like colonizers finding like these like villages in certain places in West Africa, and like they would have men that were like patriarchal societies, so men that were head of whatever their little like household or group was, and they would also have like wives, but then they would also have men or like whatever their partners were, or subservience or whatever, and certain men and describe them as men. Maybe they weren't men. I don't know what their gender classifications were back then, but like men that were engaged in the same activities that women were, and dressed the same way, and etc. And so it like really leads me to believe too, in that same sense, that that early West African societies like potentially were very liberal when it came to queerness, when it came to identity, when it came to all that stuff. So it really just like really you just got to question at some point in time. It's like, well, if that's the case where we came from, at what point was the narrative introduced? Like you mentioned before, was the narrative introduced that that wasn't okay anymore? Because I imagine a lot of the people that came over or that were forcibly brought over on those boats, like still thought the same way when they came over. And it wasn't until they were, indoctrinated into some way of thinking that, maybe they considered that to be shameful. But it's like, I really want our community to realize, like, yo, every tip. I consider myself a Christian, but I'm going to say this anyway. Everybody's everybody's on this tip. Yo, pray to before before God was introduced to us, before Christianity was introduced. Like, but you also got to question, like, okay, live before then too. So if you're on the tip of like, oh, I want to get back in touch with my ancestors. Oh, I want in touch with my culture and etc. You got to accept that homophobia, transphobia stuff wasn't a part of your culture. It wasn't a part of the culture that we were tied to, or culture. So you're introducing this new way of thinking into that, and it doesn't vibe. It doesn't vibe. It won't exist harmoniously, and you're trying to make it, and it's just
And I think the book that you because it is a book that you're referring to, right? I think it's
uh,
Men Wives of West Africa or something like that.
maybe I read it in
Uh,
an article. They may have been referencing that. Yeah, that.
I do have that book. I haven't read it yet. I need to, but
Okay.
I do know what you mean. But yeah,
Yeah,
like the concept of just throughout all of history,
yeah,
there's been homosexual people, bisexual people, transgender people, people who express themselves in different ways. All of that has been here. And it was not until the European or Western way of thinking of duality and like the polar definitions of certain things in terms of the Western social constructs that it actually became a thing. Like there was not anybody really being homophobic in Africa or these other countries of people who just like we accept people of who they are.
right,
People are people. Like I'm a firm believer that even when it comes to like the coming of age ceremonies with a lot of African traditions is rooted in people identifying themselves of however they want to identify themselves as
right,
either a warrior, uh, doctor, or male, female, somewhere in between. Whatever the case is, this is people identifying themselves and going into their identity at a young age and living through that until they eventually die. This is
right.
it's like what am I trying to say? It's like this concept that we live through these days. is nothing that's rooted in most cultures outside
Yeah.
of Western culture. Like even because it's something that I shared last month during November that here it is. The concept of homosexuality and heterosexuality were invented in the late 19th century. The way that
Mhm.
we see it and how it's supposedly expressed, that shouldn't exist before the 19th century.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why did it not exist? Because people didn't care. People
Right.
weren't really focused on these things. People could go to a bathhouse and have sex. There was the red light district for a reason, for people to express or search the taboo as much as they wanted to. Like, yeah, you have Puritans. The Puritans is wherever the fuck the Puritans are. Like, yeah, they existed, but they had their
Right.
own individual community within a broader community of people who express themselves a lot differently, which is why you might have stories of African people who engage with Puritans, or Native American people who engaged with Puritans, or how they hated these groups and whatnot. But also they intermingled with other people too.
Right.
It's not just them specific in those communities. There were people who were, what was it, the Quakers, who were
Yeah.
very nonviolent people who had their own doctrine that they followed and whatnot. You had the Christian, other Christian churches and whatnot that's here in the U.S. that express themselves however they wanted to express themselves. Most definitely still brutal as fuck, but
Yeah.
you have all these different identities that's in this melting pot of beginning nation that is, quotes on that. But you
Yeah.
have all these new cultures just defining themselves, growing within themselves, experiencing themselves, and living and being free however they see freedom, while they express themselves sexually however they want. They're
Right.
not putting these rules on people. Yeah, they still have that binary of male female, but they still document how Native American tribes had the two-spirited people, how these
Yeah.
African tribes had the male wives or masculine or women husbands and stuff like that. They document these things because they existed prior
Right.
to
Right.
Western ideology being placed within these communities.
Right. Right.
It's
It's
annoying.
it's very it's like it's upsetting knowing that that's where we came from because it's like where we are now. Everybody's very there's so many people that are resistant to moving
Hmm.
in a. It's progressive for us because we've never been there, but it really is moving backward, right? It's like we want to return back to the point where all that stuff was accepted, where everyone was allowed to be who they are and identified, as they are. But again, yeah, there's so many people that are resisting, kind of damming up the river of progress, right? That
Yeah.
aren't interested in moving forward and or backward in this case. But
Yeah.
it's frustrating.
And I found the book. It's Boy Wives and Female Husbands. I'll be sure to make sure I tag it in the show notes for people in case y'all want to read it. And just to, do a throwback to the last episode, because, when you were talking about how some people's just like, just because you have uh, a, a partner who's not black, you're not pro-black. You're not pro-black if you don't support trans people, queer people, or anything like that.
Yeah,
Because look, that
right,
existed within black spaces long before
right.
Western ideology. And just for those people who might need an additional hint of history, be mindful that when it came to missionaries throughout history, their main purpose was to spread the religion and the ideals of that religion to African countries, utilizing enslaved people who've already fell for the okie doke, but utilize those individuals to teach that doctrine to African people so that they learn the good word,
Mm,
not because this is what those cultures were. It's all
mm,
about the colonization. It's all about making sure that their mindset, their beliefs is the only beliefs that other people are, engulfed in that they believe. But look into it if you don't believe me. It is what it is. But
yeah, yeah. Dropping knowledge on them. You got it. Yeah,
like I don't have my little Hotep hat because I'm not. love you all, but I can't be homophobic. I'm sorry. I like dick too.
No. Fair.
I would definitely fuck a hotep. I will be honest, y'all. Don't judge me, but I would do it. I
All
would
right,
do it.
cut the
I
podcast. That's it.
look. Give me about a year. I'll come back with the story. So, Vernon, did you ever fuck that hotep you was talking about? I surely did. I hate all queer people now. How dare you? The dick will change the life. Wait,
Right.
Bird, you got dick from a hotep and now you hate gay people? What? Are y'all still fucking? How
Uh,
dare you ask such a question? I would never defile my body in such a way. Yes.
Secretly.
Oh
Too
my
fun.
God. Oh God. All right. All right. In the episode, Bernie. Here we go. All right. Never have I ever. I'm gonna do never have I ever in a would you rather. Never have I ever been to any sort of sex class.
Um, okay, define sex class because that's
You
there's a
know,
there's a I have a part of me wants to say yes and then part of me
I, I'm with you there because I'm thinking because I'm like if you count sex ed, yes, but if it's
right.
more of the how to be more intimate with your partner kind of thing, no.
Mm,
But I would like
mhm.
to go to something like that, or even a kink workshop or something like that. That would be amazing. But I have not done that
Right.
yet.
See, I similarly I would count sex ed as yes. If you count it as yes, I count sex ed. And then I was back in 2016, uh National Poetry Slam was here in Atlanta and they were doing like workshops and demonstrations and stuff and they had a BDSM demonstration at
Hmm.
as one of like workshops or and if you count that as a class because they did demonstrate some things then I would say yes. But if you don't, because it was just a demonstration and not like an actual teaching session, then I would say no.
See,
Just depends on the, yeah.
I will actually count that as a sex. I technically probably should count the program I'm into, but at the same time, this is more of learning about sexuality
Right.
and not necessarily like a workshop. So, I need to go to a
Good
sex
question.
class.
Good question.
So, the would you rather? Would you rather date someone with the perfect body but who's boring in bed, or date someone who's amazing in bed but who looks average? And of course, I know you're in your marriage and whatnot, but hypothetically.
Average body, amazing in bed. That's the perfect body, man. What is that? What does that mean? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like, yeah, that's not worth like not having good sex for the rest of your life
Thank
just because.
you.
Yeah, that's not worth that. You know.
I'm with you 100% because look, I don't care how fine or how perfect your motherfucking body is. If I'm not getting pleasure, and
Right, right,
if you're
right,
not getting pleased by this, I'm not happy.
right, right.
Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
look, be average as fuck. Look, look, be average.
Well,
If we knocking boots and boots is being knocked and broken, I'm here. I'm here.
yeah, because you gotta think about it, right? It's like at some point in time, and maybe this is at some point in time, you just kind of get seeing the other person naked or whatever, and it's not like it stops being. I mean, it's still exciting, but it stops being as exciting as it was. Like maybe you didn't know what that like naked. So
Mhm.
like, yeah, when the mystery of it was finally revealed, you're like, okay, awesome, I know now. So like, once you got into that point and you're like, okay, I know I'm dating this hot person and I know what they're like now. And you reach the point where you're like, okay, I'm used to what their body looks like and I'm comfortable with that. Like, what do you have then? The mystery is gone. The excitement of like discovering what they look like naked is gone. So like all you're left is like enjoying each other's bodies and enjoying. So like, you're missing one of the key components. Like,
Like
so yeah,
it doesn't make sense. Like
no,
I know there's somebody who's just like, oh no, I want the perfect body.
yeah, okay,
Do you, boo? Do you?
right,
Like
right, right.
I refuse.
That
I
that's
refuse.
fine. Like
Like
that's
I
for you. Yeah,
I would never understand why so many people accept the bare minimum for
yeah,
themselves.
right, right, right. It's like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's why. Why would you want that for yourself? That's got to be upsetting after a certain point in time.
Right?
Yeah, where you're just sitting there like we're thing every day in the same position for however long, and you don't even really. Yeah, no, I'm good.
Yeah, that's why I can't even fuck with these people who like, their little social media bays or whatever, and they just
Yeah,
like, oh, they will look so good together.
right.
We'll make the most beautiful babies. I don't care what the fuck our baby's gonna look like if the sex that leads up to these babies happening ain't good. Because now I'm stuck with
Right,
this little motherfucker for the next 18 plus years.
right,
And
right,
now I might be stuck with your ass because look, child support,
right.
this ain't looking cute. Cause I could leave you for somebody else, but
Right,
look, I wanted to enjoy making this little motherfucker.
right, right. I wanted this to be a time, and it wasn't. And it
Like,
wasn't.
I would be so pissed if
Oh
I
yeah,
have
that's
a one night stand, or even if I hooking up with a partner on a regular basis, and I'm enjoying that sex, but the conception night was the worst night of sex. Oh, I'm gonna be so pissed. I'm not gonna like this child because I'm just gonna be like, how disappointed I was when we
right,
conceived
right,
your ass.
right, right. That's like after that, and then we weren't able to have sex for a while either because she wasn't feeling. Now here we are, or they weren't feeling comfortable. Here we are. What are you talking about?
Child.
That's my last memory. That's my last memory of yeah, us having a good time was before we had you, and now I can't even.
And you have the nerve to fucking cry at 2 a.m. in the fucking
Right,
morning.
right, right.
This is why parents hate their kids. It makes sense now. It makes sense.
I'm so sleep. That's funny.
Oh Lord. Okay. Do you have any last words that you'd like to share with the audience?
Um, I'll do what I did last episode and tap on something you said earlier. You cannot be pro-black unless you support all black people except for the intolerant ones, obviously.
Mm.
But unless you support all black people, that includes queer black people, trans black people of different religions, black people of different mindsets, not necessarily political views. It depends on the political. I'm sorry, those black people, but
They could be left on the plantation.
yeah, right. Yeah, you can say Candace Owens. I'm sorry, but um,
I,
anyway, you can't be pro black unless you support all black people, with an asterisk. So, yeah, I just wanted to say that. And
I,
again, oh my bad, I'm sorry.
oh no, no, go ahead, go ahead.
And I was gonna say, and again, to touch on what I said last episode too, if you find yourself in a situation where you're looking for community, know that my inbox is always open. At Go Home Ryan on both Instagram, and like I said, I might not always be open to or be good at conversation, but always open to point you in the right direction and provide you with the resources if you need to.
Amen. I just want to say this before I do my last message for y'all. I definitely disagree with Candace Owens, but bitch is smart as hell because I know she is racking up coins with these stupid ass, racist ass white people. I'm like, do
So
y'all not?
yeah,
Aren't
yeah,
y'all
she's making
supposed to be
money.
racist?
Yeah, yeah, she is making money. I'm not gonna lie about that.
I love that for her, but bitch is so
Yeah.
fucking irritating. But shout out to her for that because I know if she gets the opportunity, oh, bitch is leaving. She will
Right.
leave. She knows that, oh, there's an actual black Mecca that I will feel safe and honored and all this other shit. Fuck you, white people. And she'll dip because she understands racism. Yeah, the black community's gonna be
Uh,
like, bitch, you put us through hell. You
you
think we're
put us
gonna
through
forgive
everything you
you?
could. Right. Right.
Fuck
You
you,
put us through
hoe.
all that.
But she going to dip. I know that bitch is going to dip. But she's smart. She's smart. I'll give her that.
Yeah.
It's still fuck Candace Owens. And Kanye.
Right. 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 That's a whole nother episode.
A whole nother episode. We're going maybe a release in the load. But anyways, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast, Ryan. Greatly appreciate you. To the listeners out there, thank you all so much for listening to the Holy podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. Just in case no one else told you this today, you are beautiful. You are worthy of happiness and joy. You are enough and then some. You may not live up to the expectations of others, but that is okay. You are only required to walk in your own shoes. May each day you live lead you towards abundance. With that said, love you all and see you next episode. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Holiloquy Podcast, where we step out and speak on sexuality. You can subscribe to the podcast through your favorite podcasting app and find us on the web at www.holiloquy.com. That's www.heauxliloquy.com. Share the podcast with your friends and join the conversation.